One of the fundamental responsibilities of journalists throughout an election is to hold politicians accountable. At Rebel News, we seek to ask tough but fair questions of politicians. What's your position on vaccine passports for those individuals unwilling to be vaccinated?
Opposed, and we've been very clear from the beginning that we will not facilitate or accept vaccine passports.
That tough line of questioning has drawn ire from many politicians, including Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh. Some of them decry and demonize us.
Quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country.
Others simply refuse to answer fair questions because they don't like that we dare challenge them.
Les milliardaires de Big Pharma et abandonnez votre philosophie de pro-choix.
Merci, mais je ne réponds pas aux questions de Rebel News. Merci.
Politicians and elected officials must be held to account. They must be willing to answer questions. It's part of their responsibility that they accepted when they took public office. If you want to help our tough line of questioning, our real journalism, go to realreporters.ca.
Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News. We have approached a large number of candidates throughout this election, and most of them have spoken with us. Unfortunately, some political parties are dodging us. We expect that of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, certainly possible with Jagmeet Singh, but we had hoped that Conservative candidates would be willing to speak with us. The new Conservative voices, whether that be Independents, the Maverick Party, or the People's Party of Canada, have been excited to speak to us. But when it comes to Conservatives, we have reached a mixed bag. Some people will not answer our calls, others are happy to speak with us. So today I'm outside of the office of Tom Kmiec, and we are going to go see if he's willing to answer some questions and be accountable to the folks he's supposed to be representing. Well, Tom, thanks so much for being willing to join me today. First off, it's an issue that's affecting lots of parties, but it's been an issue certainly in South Calgary. Some signs of yours were smashed. What do you make of that happening, regardless of party, throughout this election? It seems to be more than past years, doesn't it?
I wouldn't say it's more maybe than last few years. Like I remember back in 2015, I had a lot of my signs that were vandalized, spray painted specifically. I know, every election it happens. So a couple of things you need to remember. One, it's a criminal offense to damage a political party sign. Doesn't matter if it's Conservative, Liberal, New Democrat, whatever party you belong to. And the second thing is you're destroying a lot of volunteer work and volunteer time. If you don't agree with the candidate, go debate the ideas. Send them an email, call them, go and organize for somebody that you do like. There's no reason to destroy the work of hardworking volunteers in it. And if and when we do catch these people, we're going to report them to the police, obviously. And I'm happy to identify anyone who's destroying any campaign signs and report them to the police.
Perhaps maybe signs haven't been attacked more than past years. I think, though, that it is probably fair to say with some of the rhetoric and polarization out there that there's been a lack of dialogue, or at least the caliber of dialogue has decreased. We see people unwilling to answer questions from journalists. We see in our case, a federal court actually had to intervene so that we could attend and ask questions at the debate. What do you make of this attack on free press journalism? And particularly, journalists are supposed to be a mechanism for accountability for elected officials.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the court ruling in favor of Rebel, and this is what the rule of law is supposed to be like. If you disagree with what the government is doing and you have a case, you take it before a judge, and in this case, the judge ruled in the favor of an independent press outlet, which is exactly the way it should be. Let the justices, let the judge decide where you should fall on this issue. And for people choosing not to answer the questions of journalists or, trying to avoid them, like that's not the way to do things. Good civics, I think, should start with politicians. Just answer the question as best as they can. It's fine to say, I don't know, if it's I don't know, and just, take it on the chin when you have to.
And I think probably it's pretty apparent Justin Trudeau has lashed out at media outlets that aren't friendly with him. Jagmeet Singh similarly unwilling to answer questions sometimes. With the Conservative Party of Canada, though, we've noticed something of a mixed bag. Some people will answer questions, some people won't. What's the basis for that? If the Conservative Party professes to advocate for integrity in journalism, how come some people just simply won't talk to questioning journalists?
Yeah, well, it's like you guys came in, into my office, and it's kind of a slow morning that we're having. We're just doing strategic stuff, planning out our week. It's fine. I'm happy to answer questions when people pop by into my office. Some candidates are really, really busy. They have very, very competitive races, or they're assisting others in other ridings, need to plan their time. That's up to each and every single individual campaign to plan out what they're going to do. And in my case, if someone wants to come talk to me in my office, I'm there. I'm happy to answer questions.
One of the themes that came up in a very recurring fashion throughout the debates, and given that 2/3 of the debates took place in French, despite 80% of the country speaking English, and they were all in Quebec, Western alienation emerged. We even saw Mr. Aaron O'Toole challenged to repeat something that he'd said about the oil industry in French and English once again, and that didn't happen. How can the Conservative Party of Canada, with lots of these other voices starting to emerge, profess to still be the principal voice that represents the West in Ottawa?
That's really easy. We have the best policy platform for anybody living in Western Canada. We're the only party calling for the end of C-69, C-48, and so much more to change the regulatory state to make sure we can actually build pipelines and get energy jobs and people actually into those jobs, restoring the prosperity that we had under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And the second part of it is we have a way better equalization platform than any party out there. I will be happy to go through every single one of them, but we have the best platform. And I should know, because it's my private members bill that is the foundation of the Conservative Party's platform, which is $5 billion back to Alberta, which is retroactive back to 2015. We are the party of the West. We have the most MPs from it. We have a vibrant volunteer base. We have the source of our strength is from Western Canada. Most of the senior members of the Conservative Party and the movement, beyond just those who are elected, is also from Western Canada.
Well, some of that may be true. I think that it is fair when people do question the defense of oil and gas sectors in this province. You clearly are a supporter. You're representing. Particularly, we talk about concerns about the environment and Indigenous communities. Indigenous communities, their number one employer is the oil and gas sector. So during those debates, it may not represent your perspective, but there's almost a unanimous consensus that we have to get beyond oil and gas. What do you make of that?
So I disagree. We can do all of it. Like there's no reason the government should be getting involved in picking and choosing winners and losers. And our platform represents that. It's 160 pages, extremely detailed. We can do lots of very different things. And getting back people working in the oil and gas sector, it also includes people like wildlife biologists, hydrologists, people who take care of reclaiming the land after it's been used up in the oil sands, and bring back wildlife onto there. Like there's two sides to the same coin, and we can do everything.
On the issue of Indigenous problems and issues that those communities are facing, Justin Trudeau has for years talked as though he's this big advocate for these communities. And yet, while there are simple solutions evident and ready to provide clean drinking water, he has done very little. Clearly, he's addressed some of the issues, but I've spoken to numerous industry experts that say the bureaucracy and the government hang-ups have prevented children from having access to clean drinking water. What will the Conservative Party do to address that issue in a timely fashion?
We'll do it. So it's in our platform. We will basically fix it and make government officials do it. If we need to tie compensation to it in the public service, if we need to, put extra resources towards making it done, if we have to pay more to getting it done, we will get it done. It's unacceptable that for every 2 water boil advisories that are dealt with, there's a new one that pops up, and the government wasn't able to meet its goal. It shouldn't take 6 years to get fresh water into remote communities. That's something every single one of us in Calgary gets to enjoy. It's the minimum, absolute minimum that we can do is to have a government in place that will actually get it done, and we will.
Obviously, new issues emerge and arise on that front, but is there a concrete timeline that existing long-term boil water advisories that the Conservative Party is saying they will make every possible effort to alleviate?
Not yet, because what we need to do is get access to those government documents. And as you know this, they took down the website where they actually were revealing which water boil advisories were being eliminated, which ones were continuing. Without that data, without that information, you have one of the most secretive governments who came in on this notion of extreme transparency, and I'm one of the biggest filers of access to information requests, and I make them available online so other journalists can use them too. We need the data, we need the information so that we can actually put forward a plan to get it done.
The government has given, we started talking about journalistic integrity and access to reporters. The government gives billions of dollars to reporters. For most, it would seem an apparent conflict of interest. Aaron O'Toole largely started much of his campaigning on a defund the CBC platform. He seems to have maybe backtracked a bit. You sent a mail out recently to your constituents saying that you're still advocating for the CBC to be defunded. Is your position the same on that?
So it's the same that Aaron O'Toole has. So in our platform, we have a couple of things. So we're going to split out Radio Canada, which is the French part, from the CBC. We'll make it independent, have its own board of directors, its own operations, because they do have a totally different market than the rest of English Canada. The next thing we'll do is the radio components like Radio North. We're going to I hive those out. They're also separate components to it, and they have decent listenership. And there are very remote communities where they might be the only source of news or entertainment you're going to get. So we should keep those aside. But in the platform, it says CBC TV, CBC TV, CBC, their news channel, and one other of their stations, as well as their online platform, will be reviewed in order to see whether we can use like a PBS model. I got PBS very recently. It's a great source of both documentaries and entertainment. I'm trying to get my kids into it. That's a great model that we should look at. So in our platform, we're calling for it to see whether we can't have this PBS type model that we use. Their ratings are really low. The CBC, it's under 3% for their online stuff, and for their TV, it's under 10% for the radio. So, I mean, it's time. We can't keep doing the same thing we were doing before. And if you're almost paying $1.5 billion, you got to ask yourself, what am I getting out of this as a taxpayer?
With the emergence of the People's Party of Canada growing rapidly, the Maverick Party, independents starting to capture some of that conservative vote, what is your pitch that they should stick with your party and vote for you?
If you want to get rid of Justin Trudeau on September 20th and you want that to be his last day as Prime Minister, you have to vote for the Conservative Party. We're the only ones running candidates almost in every single riding all across Canada. We are the best chance to make September 20th the last day the Prime Minister gets to refer to himself that way. None of the other parties have a chance of even achieving that goal.
And finally, what is perhaps the achievement or the bill or the legislation you've brought forward in your time in office that you're most proud of? And what is the thing that you would most like to do if reelected?
Well, that'll take another hour. Like, if you have that spirit, like the Equalization and Transfers Act, which forms the foundation of what our offering is for Western Canadians, specifically for Alberta, is, I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of in the last few years. But the one that speaks most to my heart is I have a private member's bill on bereavement leave. And I think parents who lose a child under 18, especially an infant, whether it's from stillbirth or whether it's, later through a drowning or an accident, whatever that is, they need time off. And need time off that's paid. So in our platform now, we're calling for 8 weeks of paid leave through the EI system. Won't cost taxpayers anymore. It's a compassionate and a fair thing to do. That was announced just yesterday on a Sunday by Aaron O'Toole.
And then what would you like to do moving forward?
Anything my constituents tell me to do.
I want to thank Tom for taking a few minutes to chat with us. When he answers those questions, instead of closing the door in our face, he is answering the questions of the millions of viewers that we have and of the constituents that he is called to represent. So again, a thank you to Tom for taking time with us today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. If you want to support bold, independent journalism that is not paid off by the government, we urge you to go to realreporters.ca and help our real journalism.